line. Bad bitches, every city in my tribe. Look behind. Booty dominate.
Or do you want to see that? Like, you can see that in the wage pay gap.
I feel like the wage pay gap, if men and women were doing the same job, shouldn't they be getting paid the same amount?
You would think, but they're not.
Why aren't they? If a man and a woman are working the same job,
society typically see that men are more qualified just by the inherent quality of being a man. So
what is getting a job? I'm a little confused on this, because when you get a job, not even just as a government official, you're talking about a pay gap. What is the company doing to make sure that women are not getting paid as much as men are doing the same job?
What do you mean? Like, what specifically?
You're saying that there's a pay gap. You're saying there's a pay gap for men and women that work the same jobs.
Correct. Among
How does that happen?
Well, young Carl, I mean, it's not just the pay gap also, but there have been studies done by many different universities, such as Stanford, and also one done by Harvard. And both of these studies, they sent out applications that were exactly the same. They just changed a few things. They changed the race, they changed the gender, and then they also changed like the name to see if that affected how employers were to hire people. And white men statistically got more callbacks than any other category, even though all of the qualifications.
Was it just random jobs?
It was literally just copy and paste the same application, but because for some reason people think that white men are going to do a better job, they got more calls back.
Oh, that's an interesting study, and I'll definitely have to look at it.
Yeah, it was like
done by Stanford, where they literally just changed the name from a man's name to a woman's name, and they even got better.
Can you give me any details about that? Do you have it pulled up in front of you?
1 second.
I can try to look it up.
I just had a few questions about that. Like, what type of jobs were they making these applications for?
Why is that important?
Well, I just want to know. I mean, it would be good to understand the context of why people are choosing men over women. If that's what's happening and we want to change the problem, we should probably try to understand.
If we just look at the wage gap persists regardless of industry. In the civilian industries that employ the most people, women are paid less than men. In the healthcare and social assistance industry, women are paid just 69 cents for every dollar paid to men. In retail, 70 cents. In manufacturing, 73 cents. And in educational services, 83 cents. Across all industries, women are paid less than men.
That doesn't address the question if it's the same position or not. Because if you're working in different positions than other people, there's different wages you make for whatever your specialty is. So if I would like to see a study that shows the exact same specialty in the same line of work that women are getting paid less than men, because I'm sure it doesn't exist.
So you are being presented with studies and facts that show that men get preferential treatment over women, and your immediate reaction is to reject that kind of ideology? Is that, am I interpreting that correctly?
You're right. It's not factual. It's your interpretation of it. And I don't think that is accurate because of that one point I just gave you. If people are working different positions, they would probably get paid different wages. So if you want to make a correlation, why would
they evaluate men versus women in terms of the pay gap if they hold different positions?
Why
do you automatically assume that this study is comparing men and women that hold different positions? Like, wouldn't they want to make that specific element?
Because that's the whole question. You know, if you're working minimum wage at a grocery store and someone else gets hired, they're going to get paid the same amount. I mean, that's pretty obvious, right?
People who hold the same position.
Where does it say that? In what study?
So the one that I cited you in terms of the American Woman and the Wage Gap is the National Partnership for Women and Families. Let's see here. It also goes into intersectionality in terms of how it was also based on race as well.
What
And
was
then there's
the line of
also
work?
the Stanford study in terms of the resumes. I mean, if I give these to you, are you gonna like analyze them on this live or?
Yo, I've been listening this whole time. I'm not trying to disrespect anybody. I just think there's a little bit of a misconception there. Is that a problem?
Why?
Because of the example I gave you a few times here, and I've been in the workplace, for about 5 years. I'm a pretty young person, but
So
I
it's
haven't.
your kind of your anecdotal experience is why you're questioning these studies? Is that because you don't see it?
It's because there are no laws that show that women can't get paid more, and a
Are
company
you
just can't.
familiar with the difference between systematic and systemic?
Systematic and systemic.
Yeah.
Systemic is something that's like a learned behavior in society, and systematic is something that's a part of the actual system of understanding and working.
So that's pretty close. Like systematic is essentially where it would be certain laws that disproportionately affect women over men, which I could argue at this point, states starting to restrict abortion access would be a systematic approach to oppress and subjugate people who have the
Yes,
capacity for pregnancy. But a lot of what
that would
we're
be
talking
women,
about
right?
is also systemic, which is essentially societal attitudes towards how men and women are treated in different arenas of our society.
I was just looking for like actual evidence of that because it seems kind of vague, the articles and the research that you were presenting done by you said it was
What is
Stanford.
they?
They what do you
I said, what
what?
is vague?
Oh, the research. It doesn't address the
Well, I
question
haven't
really.
read the entire paper to you. Is that what you're expecting? Is me to give you like data tables?
No, it's the actual question that hasn't been answered, And if people are working different jobs, different skilled uh, practices,
These
I
are
mean,
peers.
the pay isn't.
They're comparing peers.
Peers in what way? My peer could be
They hold
one
the
of my
same job title.
managers. They hold does
Yeah,
it say
no,
that
the
on there?
study is not comparing what the entry level worker who is women get paid versus the manager who is a man that gets paid. It is the same position.
A manager is a man. Okay, I see what you're. Okay, I see what you're saying. Um, so it is the same exact roles. Women are getting
Correct.
paid less.
Correct.
And where is that allowed to happen?
What do you mean, where is that allowed?
Is that just anybody, any company can do that?
Yeah, I read you that section that says that the wage gap persists regardless of industry. The wage gap is
So
present within occupations.
So wouldn't that be beneficial for companies to hire only women at minimum wage? And wouldn't they make a lot
I
more
don't know
profit?
why you automatically assume this has to do with like minimum wage workers. These can be career as well as
Isn't it?
salary paid workers.
Isn't this? Well, it's the same thing. I'm talking about company profit, and that's usually the model of business that
It's again because
large
they have
companies.
this prejudice that men are more qualified.
So why would they even allow women to work there if they can just pay them less? Because if you believe that some people think that women aren't valuable, why wouldn't they just hire women?
You're trying to take this into like extremes in order to kind of simplify the argument in your head. It's not necessarily about a cost benefit analysis. It's about who they prejudicially think is better for the job. And therefore they pay them based on their own prejudice of how they view the quality of the worker.
Yeah, I don't. Is that constitutional to do that?
Constitutional?
Yeah. So like, couldn't you
Well,
sue?
I think
Like if
it
you
would
had
be
proof
more
of that?
like a legislative violation
yeah, the
So if
rather
it's
than
like
a
an
Constitution
obvious
constitutional
violation,
one.
if it's
the
an obvious
Constitution
violation, though.
women. So technically, I mean, we're not even mentioned in there.
You said, okay, so you said women aren't mentioned in the Constitution.
No, yeah, the word woman is mentioned in the Constitution whatsoever.
I mean, that's why the 19th Amendment exists, so that women were given the right to vote. And,
Okay,
and
but
like I
they're
said,
not
this
the
isn't a
right. They're not
constitutional
given the right
violation, it
to
is a
an equal pay.
legislation, if anything. I mean, we didn't have the Equal Pay Act until I want to say 63? Yeah, despite the Federal Equal Pay Act of 1963 and other protections from women, unless something changes, women and men will not reach equal pay on average until 2059, and not until 2133 for Black women or 2206 for Latinas. Right now, the lack of supportive policies and biases combine to make the closing wage gap elusive.
Wait, what? Can you repeat that?
Despite the Federal Equal Pay Act of 1963 and other protections for women, unless something changes, women and men will not reach equal pay parity on average until 2059.
How exactly? Why would it take so long? Like, what? How'd they get that number? If they said something happens too, what needs to happen, and why would
Correct.
it take so long?
Again, I can't like analyze all of the data for you here on live. If you would like to follow me, I can follow you back and share all of my sources so that you can read them on your own.
Oh, okay. I'm just trying to get an understanding of how they come to that conclusion of 2059.
Based on the data and the trends that we have seen.
Do you have an idea of what can be done to make that?
Yeah, so they said there are federal policies or solutions that would help. Fair pay protections and practices, which would be the Paycheck Fairness Act, would prohibit employers from retaliating against employees who discuss their wages. So a lot of employers use the fact that, your pay should be essentially confidential in order to pay men more than women. A higher minimum wage and elimination of the tipped minimum wage, which that's a little bit more complex to go into. Stronger protections against and remedies for workplace harassment. That can be another barrier that women experience when it comes to transfers or promotions.
I'm so fucking cute, bitch. I'm so fucking cute.